The rain fell hard on Heron 7. It was the kind of rain that made everything gray and cold. The drops hit the metal roofs of the small colony town like thousands of tiny drums. Most people stayed inside on nights like this. They closed their doors and windows and waited for the storm to pass. Han walked slowly through the empty streets. His boots splashed in the puddles and his coat was already wet through to his skin. He did not care. After 12 hours of fixing broken machines and damaged ship parts, he was too tired to care about anything. His repair shop was the only one in this part of the colony, so he always had work. Too much work sometimes, but work kept his mind busy. Work stopped him from thinking about things he did not want to remember. He was 34 years old, but he felt much older. His black hair was starting to show some gray at the sides. His hands were rough from years of holding tools. His eyes, once bright and full of life, now looked tired and empty. He had come to this distant planet 5 years ago, running away from memories that hurt too much. A wife, a daughter, a transport ship accident. He never talked about it. He tried not to think about it. But on quiet nights, when the rain fell and the world was dark, the memories always came back. His small house sat at the edge of town, away from the other buildings. He liked it that way. Less noise, less people, less questions. As he walked up the path to his front door, the motion light turned on. That was when he saw her. At first he thought it was just a pile of old clothes against his wall. But then the pile moved. Han stopped walking and looked more carefully. It was a person, a female. She was curled up in a ball, trying to hide from the rain under a small piece of torn fabric. Her skin was pale blue-gray, almost the color of the storm clouds above. Her hair was long and dark, wet and stuck to her face. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Han knew what she was, a Velari. He had seen them before on space stations and in wealthy people's homes. They were a conquered species from a planet far away. Thousands of years ago, another alien empire had taken their world and turned their people into servants. Now they were bought and sold across the galaxy like objects, like furniture, like tools. But he had never seen one like this. This one was not standing quietly behind some rich owner. This one was broken, beaten, dying. He took a step closer and she looked up. Her eyes were large and dark, like two deep pools of black water. There was fear in those eyes, so much fear. She tried to move away from him, but she was too weak. Her body shook from cold and hunger. Han held up his hand slowly, showing her he meant no harm. He crouched down to her level. "Hey," he said softly, "are you hurt?" She did not answer at first. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, in a voice so quiet he could barely hear it over the rain, she spoke. "I can cook, I can clean, I can be silent." Han felt something twist in his chest. Those words, they sounded practiced, memorized, like she had said them 1,000 times before to 1,000 different people. "Please," she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears that mixed with the rain on her face. "Please do not send me back. I will do anything. I will work hard. I will not cause trouble. Just, please." He saw the marks on her neck then, burn marks, the kind left by a shock collar, the kind used on slaves who tried to run away. He saw the bruises on her arms and face. Someone had hurt her. Someone had hurt her very badly. Han looked at his front door, then back at the girl. He knew the law. Harboring a runaway slave was a crime in most star systems. People went to prison for it. People disappeared for it. The smart thing to do was to call the authorities. Let them handle it. Walk inside, close his door, and forget he ever saw her. But he could not do it. He thought about his daughter. She had been 8 years old when she died. She had the same look in her eyes whenever she was scared during a thunderstorm. She would run to him, and he would hold her and tell her everything would be okay. This girl was someone's daughter too. Once, before all of this, she had been a child. She had probably laughed and played and dreamed of a good life. And now she was here, broken and alone, begging a stranger not to send her back to hell. Han stood up. He walked to his door and opened it. The warm light from inside spilled out into the rain. He turned back to look at her. "Can you walk?" he asked. She stared at him. She did not understand. No one had ever asked her that before. They only gave orders. They only took. "I am not going to send you back," Han said. "You are safe here, but you need to get out of this rain. Can you walk?" Slowly, painfully, she tried to stand. Her legs shook. She fell once, twice. Han moved quickly and caught her before she hit the ground. She was so light, so thin. He could feel her bones through her wet clothes. "I have you," he said. "Come on." He helped her inside. The door closed behind them, shutting out the storm. The warmth of the house wrapped around them like a blanket. Han led her to the small couch in his living room and helped her sit down. She looked around with wide eyes, like a frightened animal in a trap. "Stay here," he said. "I will get you some dry clothes and food." He went to find old clothes that might fit her, a shirt, some pants. They would be too big, but they were clean and dry. He warmed up some soup on the stove and brought everything to her. She took the food with shaking hands. She ate quickly, almost desperately, like she had not eaten in days. Maybe she had not. "What is your name?" Han asked, sitting in a chair across from her. She paused. She looked at him with confusion, like the question did not make sense. "My name," she repeated. "Yes, your name. What do people call you?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then so softly he almost missed it, she said, "Yuna. My name is Yuna." "Yuna," Han repeated. "That is a nice name. I am Han." She did not respond. She just stared at him, waiting, waiting for orders, waiting for the trick, waiting for the pain that always came after kindness. But Han did not give orders. He did not hurt her. He just sat there quietly while she finished eating. When she was done, he showed her to a small spare room with a bed. It was simple, but it was clean and warm. "You can sleep here," he said. "Rest, you are safe now." Yuna stood in the doorway of the room. She looked at the bed, then back at Han. Her eyes were still full of fear and confusion. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Then, without warning, her legs gave out. The exhaustion, the hunger, the fear, the relief, it was all too much. She collapsed. Han caught her just before she hit the floor. She had passed out completely. He carried her to the bed and laid her down gently. He pulled a blanket over her thin body. She looked so young like this, so fragile, so broken. Han stood there for a long time, watching her sleep. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside, everything was quiet. He did not know what he had just done. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know if he was making a huge mistake. But as he looked at the sleeping girl, he knew one thing for certain. He could not have left her outside. He could not have turned her away. Some things were more important than laws. Some things were more important than safety. Some things were simply the right thing to do. Han turned off the light and closed the door softly. He walked to his own room, his mind full of questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Who had hurt her? And most importantly, what was he going to do now? He did not have answers, not yet, but he would figure it out, somehow. He lay down on his bed and listened to the rain. For the first time in 5 years, his house did not feel quite so empty. The first week was strange for both of them. Yuna woke before the sun every morning. She moved through the house like a shadow, quiet and invisible. By the time Han opened his eyes, she had already cleaned every room, washed all the dishes, and prepared breakfast. She stood in the corner of the kitchen with her head down, waiting for him to eat. She did not look at him. She did not speak unless spoken to. She barely made any sound at all. Han did not know how to feel about this. He had lived alone for 5 years. He was used to the silence, but this was a different kind of silence. This was the silence of fear. The silence of a person who had learned that being noticed meant being punished. On the third morning, Han woke up early on purpose. He walked into the kitchen and found Yuna scrubbing the floor on her hands and knees. The floor was already clean. She had cleaned it yesterday, and the day before that. "Yuna," he said. She stopped immediately. Her whole body went stiff. She pressed her forehead to the floor in a position of complete submission. "I am sorry," she said quickly. "I will work harder, please forgive me. I will do better, I will." "Stop," Han said, but his voice was gentle. "Please stop, get up." She rose slowly, keeping her eyes on the ground. Her hands were shaking. Han could see the fear in the way she held her body, like she was preparing to be hit. He felt sick to his stomach, not because of her, because of whoever had made her this way. "Yuna," he said slowly, "you do not need to clean the floor every day. Once a week is enough." She said nothing. She just stood there waiting. "And you do not need to cook breakfast for me. I usually just eat some bread and drink coffee. Simple things." Still nothing. Her silence was heavy, like a wall between them. Han took a deep breath. "Yuna, look at me." She did not move. "Please," he said, "look at me." Very slowly, like it caused her physical pain, she raised her eyes. They were the same dark pools he remembered from that rainy night, but now he could see something else in them. Confusion, terror, and deep, deep sadness. "I do not know what your life was like before," Han said carefully. "I do not know what they did to you, but I want you to understand something. You are not my servant. You are not my property. You are a guest in my home. Do you understand?" Yuna blinked. She clearly did not understand. How could she? Her entire life had been about following orders, about being owned. The concept of being a guest probably did not exist in her world. "I have no orders for you," Han continued. "You can eat when you are hungry. You can sleep when you are tired. You can sit down and rest. You can read books, watch shows on the screen, walk in the garden. You can do whatever you want." "Whatever I want." Yuna repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. "Yes. But what is my purpose here? What is my function?" Han shook his head. "You do not need a purpose. You do not need a function. You just need to heal, to rest, to remember who you are." Yuna stared at him for a long time. Then she looked away, her face troubled. She did not know how to respond to kindness without strings attached. She was waiting for the trap, the trick, the moment when he would show his true nature and become like all the others. But that moment did not come. Days passed. Han went to work at his repair shop every morning. When he came home, he found that Yuna had still cleaned and cooked, but she was starting to change, little by little. She started sitting at the table during meals instead of standing in the corner. She started eating the same food as Han instead of only eating leftovers. She started making small sounds, the soft noise of footsteps, the quiet closing of doors, instead of moving in total silence. One evening, Han brought home a small device. It was an old entertainment console, the kind that could play movies and music and games. He put it in the living room and showed Yuna how to use it. "For me?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. "For you," Han confirmed. "You can use it whenever you want. There are thousands of shows and movies. Maybe you will find something you like." That night, Han heard something coming from the living room. He walked in quietly and found Yuna sitting on the floor in front of the screen. She was watching a children's cartoon about a small animal going on adventures. The colors were bright and the music was cheerful, and Yuna was watching it with wide eyes, like she had never seen anything so wonderful in her life. Han smiled sadly and went back to his room. He wondered when the last time was that someone had let her just be happy. Maybe never. Maybe this was her first time. The second week was better. Yuna started talking more, short sentences at first, simple observations. "The weather is nice today. The soup is ready. I fixed the broken shelf in the storage room." Han was surprised by that last one. She knew how to fix things. She was good with her hands. When he asked about it, she explained that one of her previous owners had a factory. She had learned to repair machines there. "You are smart," Han said. "You learn quickly." Yuna looked at the floor. "Thank you, master." "Please do not call me that. My name is Han, just Han." "Yes, Maz, yes, Han." It was progress, slow progress, but progress. Han started telling her about himself too. Not everything, but small things. He told her about Earth, the human homeworld, and how he had grown up in a city with millions of people. He told her about space travel and how he had become an engineer because he loved understanding how things worked. He told her about Heron 7, this small colony on the edge of known space, and why he had come here to start over. He did not tell her about his wife. He did not tell her about his daughter. Not yet. That wound was still too fresh, too deep. But Yuna was starting to share things too. Small pieces of her past offered carefully like fragile gifts. She told him she had been captured as a child. She barely remembered her parents. She had been trained in special facilities where they taught Velari slaves how to serve, how to obey, how to be perfect tools for their masters. She had been sold 4 times. Each master had been different. Some were cold, some were cruel. One had been so terrible that Yuna still could not talk about him. Her voice simply stopped working when she tried. "How did you escape?" Han asked one evening. Yuna was quiet for a long time. "My last owner was transporting me to a new buyer. The ship stopped at a station for repairs. There was an accident, an explosion in the cargo area. In the confusion I ran, I hid. I moved from ship to ship, planet to planet, until I ended up here." She paused. "I was going to die that night you found me. I had accepted it. I was too tired to keep running." Han did not know what to say, so he simply reached out and put his hand over hers. Yuna flinched at first. She always flinched at touch, but she did not pull away. "You are safe now," he said. "No one will hurt you here, I promise." Yuna looked at his hand on hers. When she looked up at him, there were tears in her eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this? I am nothing. I am no one. Humans do not help people like me. You could sell me back to the traders and make a lot of money. Why do you not do that?" Han squeezed her hand gently. "Because you are not nothing. You are a person. You have a name and a history and feelings. And every person deserves to be free. Every person deserves to be treated with kindness." "But—" "No buts," Han said firmly. "I know the galaxy is cruel. I know people do terrible things to each other. But that does not mean I have to be one of those people. My mother taught me something when I was a boy. She said that the world becomes a little better every time someone chooses kindness over cruelty. I believe that. I still believe that." Yuna stared at him. She did not know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever treated her like she mattered. That night something changed. Some wall inside Yuna, some defense she had built to protect herself, began to crack. And through that crack, a tiny bit of light started to shine in. The next evening, Han was telling a story about a time his repair drone had malfunctioned and sprayed oil all over an angry customer. It was a stupid story, really. Not even that funny. But as he told it, describing the customer's shocked face and his own panicked attempts to turn off the drone, he heard something unexpected. Laughter. Yuna was laughing. It was a small sound, quiet and uncertain, like she was not sure if she was allowed to do it. But it was real. Her eyes crinkled at the corners. Her lips curved into a smile. For just a moment, she looked like a completely different person. She looked young and alive and beautiful. Han stopped talking. He just looked at her. "What?" Yuna asked, suddenly worried. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Han said. His voice was thick with emotion. "No, you did something right. That is the first time I have heard you laugh." Yuna touched her own lips, surprised. I have not laughed in a very long time. I forgot what it felt like." "It sounds nice," Han said. "You should do it more often." Yuna looked down, but she was still smiling. That night Han lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about the sound of Yuna's laughter. He thought about how empty his house had been for 5 years. He thought about his wife and daughter and how much he missed them. But for the first time since he lost them, the memories did not only bring pain. There was something else too, something that felt almost like hope. Maybe he was not meant to be alone forever. Maybe there was still room in his broken heart for someone new. Outside, the twin moons of Heron 7 rose slowly into the night sky. Inside, two broken people were starting to heal. Together. The trouble started on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Han was working in his repair shop, fixing a broken engine part for a local farmer. It was simple work, the kind of work that let his mind wander. He was thinking about Yuna, about how much she had changed in the past month, about how the house felt warmer now, fuller, more alive, about how he was starting to look forward to coming home every evening. The door opened. Han looked up, expecting a customer. Instead, he saw three figures standing in the doorway. Two of them were aliens, large, muscular, with rough gray skin and small dark eyes. They were Krath, a species known for working as enforcers and mercenaries. The third was a human male. He was thin with a sharp face and cold smile. "Can I help you?" Han asked carefully. He did not like the look of these three. Something about them felt wrong, dangerous. The human stepped forward. "We are looking for something, or rather someone, a Velari female, young, blue-gray skin, dark hair. She was seen in this town a few weeks ago. Have you seen her?" Han kept his face calm even though his heart started beating faster. "A Velari? No, I do not think we have any Velari on this colony. You might have the wrong place." The human's smile grew wider, but it did not reach his eyes. "Really? That is strange, because our information says she was spotted near this area, and our information is usually very accurate." One of the Krath walked slowly around the shop, looking at the tools and equipment. The message was clear. They were not just asking questions, they were threatening. "I fix machines," Han said steadily. "I do not keep track of every alien who passes through town. Maybe she moved on. This is a border planet. People come and go all the time." The human nodded slowly. "Maybe, or maybe someone is hiding her, helping her. That would be very illegal, you know, very dangerous for that person." "I would not know anything about that." The human studied Han for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small device and placed it on the counter. It showed a holographic image of Yuna. She looked younger in the image, less tired, but it was clearly her. "This slave is worth a lot of money," the human said. "She was being transported to a very important buyer when she escaped. Her owners want her back. They have hired us to find her, and we always find what we are looking for." Han looked at the image, then back at the human. "She is not here. I cannot help you." The human's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Han thought he might attack right there. But instead, the man just picked up his device and turned toward the door. "We will be watching," he said. "If you are hiding something, we will find out. And when we do, you will regret it." The three of them left. Han stood very still for a long time after they were gone. His hands were shaking. They had found her. They knew she was here. It was only a matter of time before they came for her. He closed the shop early and hurried home. When he arrived, he found the house in chaos. The front door was broken. Furniture was turned over. His belongings were scattered everywhere. Someone had searched the place while he was at work. "Yuna," he called out, his voice tight with fear. "Yuna." No answer. He ran through the house, checking every room. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. She was gone. They had taken her. He was too late. Then he heard a sound, a soft scraping from the storage closet in the back. He rushed to it and pulled open the door. Yuna was there, pressed into the smallest corner of the closet, hidden behind boxes. She was trembling violently. Her eyes were wild with terror. "Yuna," Han said with relief. "Thank the stars, you are okay." She looked at him and the fear in her eyes broke his heart. "They came," she whispered. "They found me. They broke in and searched everywhere. I hid. I was so scared. I thought they would find me, I thought." She could not finish. She just started crying. Deep, painful sobs that shook her entire body. Han knelt down and held her. She clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a storm. "It is okay," he said, even though he knew it was not okay. "I am here. You are safe. I will not let them take you." That night Han cleaned up the house while Yuna sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. She had stopped crying, but she had not spoken much either. Her eyes kept moving to the windows, to the door, waiting for the hunters to return. After everything was in order, Han sat down next to her. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "They know you are here, they are watching. It is not safe anymore." Yuna nodded slowly. "I know I should leave. I have put you in danger. I am sorry. I never wanted." "Stop," Han said firmly. "That is not what I meant. I do not want you to leave." She looked at him with surprise. "But they will hurt you, if they find out you are hiding me." "Let me worry about that." "No," Yuna suddenly stood up, her voice rising. "You do not understand. These are not just traders or local criminals. They work for the syndicate, the Velari trafficking network. They are powerful. They are everywhere. They do not stop. They never stop. And they do not care who they hurt to get what they want. You are just one man. You cannot fight them." Han was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to a cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened it and pulled out a box from the back. Inside the box was an old uniform, gray and blue, the colors of the Terran Defense Corps. Yuna stared at it. "You were a soldier." "A long time ago," Han said. "Before I was an engineer, before I was a husband and father. I served for 10 years. I fought in the border wars. I did things I am not proud of. I saw things I wish I could forget." He looked at her. "I came to this planet to escape, to live quietly, to be nobody. But some things cannot be escaped. Some things have to be faced." He reached deeper into the cabinet and pulled out something else. A plasma rifle, old but well-maintained. Han checked it with practiced hands, making sure it still worked. "You would fight for me?" Yuna asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why? I am just a slave. My life is worth nothing. Humans do not fight for people like me." Han put down the rifle and walked over to her. He took her hands in his. "Let me tell you something about humans," he said. "We are small compared to many species. We are not strong. We do not have claws or armored skin or natural weapons. Other species look at us and see weak creatures, easy targets, but they are wrong." He squeezed her hands gently. "Humans have something that is more powerful than claws or armor. We have stubbornness. We have heart. When we care about something, when we love something, we do not give up. We do not run. We stand and fight even when we cannot win, especially when we cannot win." His voice grew harder. "Those hunters out there think they are dealing with just another soft human, a pushover, an easy problem. They are wrong. They do not know what happens when you threaten someone a human cares about. They do not know what we become." Yuna looked into his eyes. For the first time since the hunters arrived, she saw something other than fear in his face. She saw steel. She saw fire. She saw the man he used to be before grief had softened him. "You would really die for me?" she asked. "I would," Han said simply, "but I would rather make them die first." That night they prepared. Han showed Yuna the house's weak points and strong points. He explained his plan to set up traps around the perimeter. He taught her how to use a basic weapon just in case. She was scared, but she listened. She learned. At one point, Yuna tried again to convince him to let her go. "If I run, they will follow me. They will leave you alone. You can go back to your quiet life." Han shook his head. "My quiet life ended the moment I opened my door to you, and I do not regret it, not for a second." "But why?" Yuna asked, tears forming in her eyes again. "I do not understand. No one has ever risked anything for me. I am not worth this." Han stopped what he was doing. He looked at her and his expression softened. "You are worth everything," he said. "You are a person, you have a soul, you have dreams and fears and hopes. Those things matter. They matter more than money, more than laws, more than safety. Every life has value, Yuna, even yours, especially yours." Yuna could not speak. She just stared at him as tears rolled down her cheeks. "When I lost my family," Han continued, his voice thick, "I thought I had nothing left to live for. I came to this planet to wait for death. But then you appeared at my door. broken, afraid, asking for help, and I realized something. Maybe I was not meant to die here. Maybe I was meant to find you. Maybe we were meant to save each other. He reached out and gently wiped the tears from her face. So no more talk about running. We face this together. You and me, understand? Yuna nodded slowly. For the first time, she believed him. For the first time, she understood that she was not alone. Outside, the night grew darker. Somewhere in the town, the hunters were watching, waiting, planning. They did not know that their target was no longer just a scared runaway slave. She had a protector now, a human protector, and they were about to learn why humans were feared across the galaxy. The storm was coming, and Han was ready for it. They came at midnight. Han was not asleep. He had been awake for hours, watching the motion sensors he had placed around the house. When the first alarm triggered, he was already on his feet with his plasma rifle in his hands. "Yuna," he said quietly into the darkness. "They are here. Go to the safe room, lock the door. Do not come out until I tell you." Yuna stood up from where she had been sitting. Her face was pale, but her eyes were determined. "I want to help. I can." "No," Han said firmly. "These men are dangerous. I need you safe. Please, do this for me." She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his eyes stopped her. She nodded once and moved toward the small, reinforced room they had prepared. Before she closed the door, she looked back at him. "Han," she said softly, "please do not die." He gave her a small smile. "I do not plan to." The door closed. The lock clicked. Han turned toward the window and watched the shadows moving outside. There were 3 of them, just like before. The 2 Krath mercenaries and the human coordinator. They moved quietly through the darkness, thinking they were invisible. They did not know that Han could see every step they took on his sensor display. The first Krath reached the back door. He was wearing powered combat armor, the kind that made already strong aliens nearly unstoppable. He placed an explosive charge on the door, ready to blow it open. He never got the chance. Han had buried an electromagnetic pulse mine in the ground near the back entrance. When he triggered it remotely, the pulse fried every electronic system within 5 meters. The Krath's powered armor locked up completely. Suddenly, instead of wearing protection, he was trapped inside a metal coffin that he could not move. The Krath screamed in rage and confusion. Han did not wait. He moved to the front of the house where the second Krath was approaching. This one was smarter, staying low and using cover. But Han knew this land. He had lived here for 5 years. Every rock, every shadow, every path was familiar to him. The second Krath broke through the front window with a crash. Han was waiting. He fired 3 shots in rapid succession. The plasma bolts hit the alien's shoulder, chest, and leg. The Krath roared in pain and stumbled backward, but he did not fall. His species was tough. It would take more than that to stop him. Han ducked behind the overturned couch as the Krath returned fire. Plasma bolts burned holes in the walls. The house shook with the force of the attack. Han waited for a pause, then popped up and fired again. This time, he aimed for the alien's head. The Krath went down. 2 down, 1 to go. But the human was the most dangerous of all. He was not as strong as the Krath, but he was smart, clever, patient. Han scanned the room looking for movement. Where was he? The answer came from behind. "Drop the weapon." Han froze. The human had circled around and entered through a side window. He now stood in the hallway, a pistol aimed at Han's back. "I said drop it," the man repeated. His voice was cold and calm. "You have caused us a lot of trouble, old man. Killing 2 of my partners. That was impressive. Stupid, but impressive." Han slowly lowered his rifle to the ground. "Good," the human said. "Now where is the Velari? Tell me and I might let you live." "She is not here," Han said. "She ran away days ago. You are too late." The human laughed. "Nice try, but I do not believe you. That little slave is here somewhere, hidden, scared, waiting for you to save her." He stepped closer. But you cannot save her, you cannot even save yourself. Do you know what the syndicate does to people who interfere with their business? They make examples of them, painful examples. Han said nothing. He was thinking, calculating. The human was close, but not close enough. He needed him to come just a little closer. "Where is she?" the human demanded. "Tell me now, or I start shooting pieces off you until you talk." "Behind you," Han said quietly. The human laughed again. "That is the oldest trick in the—" He never finished the sentence. The door to the safe room burst open. Yuna came out with a heavy metal tool in her hands, a pipe wrench from Han's repair supplies. She had heard everything through the door. She had watched through the crack as the human threatened Han. And something inside her, something she had never felt before, had exploded. She was not going to hide anymore. She was not going to be a victim anymore. Not when the only person who had ever shown her kindness was about to die. The wrench hit the human's arm with a sickening crack. He screamed and dropped his pistol. Yuna swung again, hitting his shoulder. The human stumbled backward, shocked and in pain. Han moved instantly. He grabbed the dropped pistol and pointed it at the human's head. "Do not move," he said. The human stared at them both, clutching his broken arm. His eyes were wide with disbelief. He had been beaten by an old engineer and a slave girl. This was not supposed to happen. "You," he spat at Yuna. "You stupid animal, do you know what you have done? The syndicate will never stop. They will send more hunters. They will burn this whole planet to find you. You think this changes anything? You are still property. You will always be property." Yuna stood there, breathing hard. Her whole body was shaking, but not from fear, from something else, something new. Her hands gripped the wrench so tight her knuckles were white. "No," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I am not property. I am a person. My name is Yuna, and I will never let anyone own me again." She looked at the wrench in her hands, then at the human on the floor. For one moment, Han thought she might kill him. He could see the rage in her eyes, the years of pain and humiliation demanding revenge. But she lowered the wrench. "I am not like you," she said to the human. "I do not hurt people because I can. That is what makes us different." The human's face twisted with hatred. "You will regret." Han hit him with the butt of the pistol, knocking him unconscious. The threat finally silenced. The fight was over, but the cost was high. Han collapsed against the wall and Yuna saw the blood for the first time. He had been hit during the firefight. A plasma bolt had caught his side. The wound was bad, very bad. "Han," Yuna dropped the wrench and rushed to his side. "No, no, no, you are hurt, you are." "It is okay," Han said through gritted teeth. "I have had worse, just need to stop the bleeding." But his face was pale and his hands were shaking. Yuna could see that it was not okay. He was losing too much blood. She needed to do something. She ran to find the medical kit. Her hands trembled as she applied pressure to the wound, as she sprayed the emergency sealant, as she wrapped bandages around his body. She had no training for this. She was just copying what she had seen others do, but she refused to give up. "Stay with me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You cannot leave me, not now, not after everything. Please, Han, please." Han reached up with a weak hand and touched her face. "I am not going anywhere," he whispered. "I promised you, remember, we face this together." Yuna worked through the night. She called for medical help on the emergency channel. She kept talking to Han, keeping him awake, keeping him focused. She told him about her childhood, about the games she used to play before she was captured. She told him about her mother's voice, the only memory she still had of her real family. She told him about the dreams she had started having, dreams of freedom, of a normal life, of a future that did not involve chains. The medical team arrived at dawn. They took Han to the colony hospital. Yuna refused to leave his side. She sat in the waiting room for hours, covered in his blood, ignoring everyone who tried to make her leave. When the doctor finally came out and said that Han would survive, Yuna broke down completely. All the fear, all the tension, all the emotion she had been holding inside came pouring out. She cried until she had no tears left. Later, when Han was stable and sleeping peacefully, she sat by his bed and held his hand. "You saved me," she whispered to him, even though he could not hear her. "You found me dying in the rain, and you saved me. You gave me food and shelter and kindness. You showed me what it means to be free, and tonight you almost died for me." She squeezed his hand tighter. "I do not know how to repay that. I do not know if I ever can, but I promise you this: I will never leave you. I will stay by your side for as long as you want me, not as a servant, not as property, but as a partner, as an equal, as someone who chooses to be here." She leaned forward and kissed his forehead gently. "Thank you, Han. Thank you for everything." Outside, the sun rose over Heron 7. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in her life, Yuna was not afraid of what it would bring. 6 months had passed since the night of the attack. The colony authorities had taken away the 3 hunters. The human and the surviving Krath were arrested and sent to a prison station far away. The syndicate, after hearing what had happened, marked Yuna as unrecoverable in their records. She was too much trouble, not worth the resources. There were easier targets elsewhere. For the first time in her life, Yuna was truly free. Han had taken weeks to fully recover from his wounds. The plasma burn had damaged muscle and some internal organs. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. Han knew it was not luck. It was Yuna. Her quick action, her refusal to give up, her constant care during his recovery. She had saved his life just as much as he had saved hers. Now, on a warm afternoon in late autumn, Han sat on the porch of his rebuilt house and watched the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple. The twin moons were just starting to rise. It was peaceful, beautiful, the kind of evening he used to ignore when he was lost in grief. The door opened behind him and Yuna came out carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed one to him and sat down in the chair beside his. She was wearing simple clothes, a soft shirt and comfortable pants that she had chosen herself from the market in town. Her hair was clean and neatly braided. Her skin had regained its healthy color. She looked healthy, strong, alive. She looked nothing like the dying girl he had found in the rain. "The repair on the farmer's harvester is finished," she said, taking a sip of her tea. "I tested it 3 times. It runs perfectly now." Han smiled. "I saw you did good work." Yuna had started helping at the repair shop a few months ago. At first, she just watched and learned. But she was smart, and her hands were skilled from years of forced labor in factories. Soon, she was doing repairs on her own. Some customers were surprised to see a Velari working instead of serving, but most people on Heron 7 did not care. This was a frontier planet. What mattered was skill, not species. "Old man Yi came by," Yuna continued. "He wants us to look at his transport shuttle next week. The engine is making strange noises again." Han nodded. "That old shuttle makes strange noises because it is older than I am, but we will take a look." Yuna laughed. It was a warm, natural sound now, not the uncertain whisper it had been in those early days. She laughed often these days. She smiled often. She spoke her mind and shared her opinions and sometimes argued with Han about the best way to fix something. She was becoming herself, the person she might have been if the syndicate had never taken her. The neighbors had noticed the change in Han too. He went outside more. He talked to people. He smiled at customers instead of just nodding silently. His eyes, once empty and tired, now held light in them. The ghost that had haunted his house for 5 years was finally fading. Some people in town whispered about them, a human and a Velari living together. Some thought it was strange. Others thought it was sweet. A few older residents, the ones who remembered their own struggles and losses, simply understood. They nodded when they saw Han and Yuna together. They knew that family was not always about blood. Sometimes it was about choice, about finding each other in the darkness and deciding to walk toward the light together. The sun sank lower, painting the world in gold. Han and Yuna sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors change. Neither of them felt the need to speak. They had learned to be quiet together without it being uncomfortable. After a while, Yuna set down her empty cup and looked at Han. "I have been thinking," she said. "About what?" "About the night we met." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I came to your door ready to be a slave again. I said those words, the words they taught us to say. I can cook, I can clean, I can be silent. I was ready to trade my freedom for survival. I did not know any other way." Han listened quietly. "But you did not want a slave," Yuna continued. "You wanted something else. You wanted me to be free. You gave me choices when I had never had any. You treated me like a person when everyone else treated me like an object." She turned to look at him, her dark eyes shining. "You changed my life, Han. You gave me back something I thought I had lost forever." "What is that?" Han asked softly. "Hope," she said. "You gave me hope. You showed me that the galaxy is not only cruel, that there are good people in it, kind people, people who will risk everything for someone they barely know just because it is the right thing to do." Han felt his throat tighten. "Yuna." "Let me finish," she said gently. "I spent years being taught that I was worthless, that I was born to serve, that my only value was in what I could do for others, but you never saw me that way. You saw me as a person, as Yuna, and because of that I started to see myself that way too." She reached out and took his hand. "I said I could cook, I could clean, I could be silent." She smiled, and there were tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I never knew I could also be free. I never knew I could also be loved. I never knew I could also have a home." Han squeezed her hand. His own eyes were wet now. "You are not just my home, Yuna," he said. "You are my family, the only family I have left, and I am grateful every day that you found your way to my door." She leaned her head against his shoulder. He put his arm around her. They sat like that as the last light of day faded and the stars began to appear. "Han," Yuna asked after a long silence. "Yes." "Tell me about Earth again. Tell me about your home." Han smiled. He had told her stories about Earth many times now, about the blue oceans and green forests, about the cities that touched the sky, about the billions of humans living together, arguing and loving and building and dreaming. But she always wanted to hear more, and he always wanted to tell her. So he talked, and she listened. He told her about the seasons on Earth, about snow in winter and flowers in spring. He told her about the festivals and the music and the food. He told her about a little boy who used to look up at the stars and dream of traveling to other worlds. "That boy found more than he ever imagined," Han said. "He found adventure and pain and loss, but he also found something he never expected." "What?" Yuna asked. "A second chance," Han said. "A reason to keep living, someone to share his life with." Yuna smiled and pressed closer to him. Above them, the twin moons hung bright in the sky. The stars stretched out forever, billions of points of light representing worlds without end. Somewhere out there, terrible things were still happening. Slavers were still trading lives. Wars were still being fought. The galaxy was still cruel in many ways. But here, on this small porch on this distant planet, two people had found peace. Two people had found each other. "Han," Yuna said again. "Yes. I love you." The words hung in the air. Simple words, powerful words. Words that Yuna had never spoken to anyone in her life. Words she had never been allowed to feel. Han turned to look at her. In her eyes he saw no fear, no uncertainty, just truth, just love. "I love you too," he said. Yuna smiled, the brightest, most beautiful smile he had ever seen. Then she kissed him, soft and sweet, under the light of the twin moons. When they finally pulled apart, she laughed quietly and wiped the tears from her cheeks. "I am sorry," she said. "I am crying again. I cry too much." "You cry because you feel," Han said. That is a gift, not a weakness. Never apologize for it." She nodded and leaned back against him. They stayed on the porch long into the night, talking and laughing and planning for the future. Yuna wanted to learn more about engineering, maybe even design her own machines someday. Han talked about expanding the shop, about taking on bigger projects, about teaching Yuna everything he knew. They talked about traveling together, maybe visiting Earth someday, maybe seeing the other colonies. The galaxy was vast, and now that Yuna was free, it was full of possibilities. "We should get some sleep," Han finally said when the moons were high above. "We have work tomorrow." Yuna nodded and stood up. But before she went inside, she turned back to look at the stars one more time. "Han." "Yes." "Thank you," she said simply, "for opening your door that night, for letting me in, for everything." Han stood and walked over to her. He took her hands in his. "Thank you for knocking," he said. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for reminding me that life is worth living." They went inside together, closing the door against the night. Inside, the house was warm and bright and full of life, not the silent, lonely place it had been for so long. It was a home now, a real home for both of them. The next morning, they would go to work. They would fix machines and talk to customers and live their simple life on this frontier planet. The days would pass, and the seasons would change, and the years would roll by like the stars moving across the sky. But they would face it all together. Whatever came next, whatever challenges awaited them, they would not have to face them alone. Because that was the human secret. That was what Han had taught her. Humans do not believe in cages, not for themselves, not for anyone. And when they find someone they love, they hold on tight and never let go. Yuna had learned that lesson. She had lived it. And now, as she fell asleep in her home, in her bed, free and safe and loved, she knew one thing for certain. She was never going back. She was never going to be a slave again. She was free, she was home. She was finally truly alive. And somewhere in the stars, in a galaxy full of darkness, a small light was burning bright. The light of hope, the light of love, the light of two broken people who had found each other and built something beautiful from the pieces. That light would never go out. Not as long as they had each other.